And trust, because I think we've all been wounded in some way, and especially just going to call out the pastoral care leaders that I've been dealing with, and I'll speak on behalf of them. They're always told that it's safe to share, but yet a lot of our pastoral care leaders are held at such a deep regard, and they're having so many deep conversations with other people. It's not safe. And so they realize that. And so to really have those deep relationships, that's what counts.
Hi, I'm Loren Norris, your host for Storypower TV, and I am so glad that you're here today. And trust me, before this episode is over, you're going to be glad you were here too. In fact, if you're doing anything else, stop what you're doing. This is not a listen kind of an interview. You need to be watching too. And when I introduce my guest, you're going to know exactly why. Listen, there are all kinds of limitations in the world. In fact, I have a client who works with people who are struggling with overwhelm because of singleness. And I was just thinking the other day, the guest that I have in studio and that client, they really need to have a conversation. Because the way people perceive them to be underprivileged, inopportune, missing out on something in life is amazing to me. But when you have a chance to meet my in-studio guest, you're going to realize she is anything but humdrum, anything but normal. In fact, I want you to help me welcome my guest, Bethany, anything but boring.
Thank you.
So glad to have you here. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah,
now,
excited to be here.
Everybody on the show has to answer the same questions. The same first question for everybody. You don't know what it is, right? Nobody's
I don't know. I wish I did.
All right, take a deep breath. You ready? This is a hard one. Who is Jesus to you?
Jesus is, I would say everything, but he is one of the most amazing relationships I've ever had in my life. Because he comes in so gently. And yet, the more I get to know him, the bigger he becomes in my life as well. I've never met anybody in my life who has known me so deeply and so rawly and so, authentically, and still wants to get close, no matter what. And it blows my mind.
And why should I care? Why should I care who Jesus is to you?
Because if you want to get to know me, you get to know my Jesus as well. And I want you to know what you're getting yourself into.
Very good.
Because I'm very unapologetic.
About everything or about Christ?
About everything. I would say almost everything.
Almost everything?
No, I'm apologizing. So, yeah.
So tell me what you do for a living.
Yes, I am a proper title is certified mental health coach, but I work with Christian counselors, mental health professionals, pastoral care leaders, those that are really struggling because they're so burnt out and doing the one-on-one thing. And so because they're so in there, they have never really had the opportunity to have a group where they can just be, take off the hat, grab the sweet tea, as I call it, and just be, and really care well for other people. So for 6 months, I work with them so they can learn how to just be in the group, because a lot of times that lets a lot of walls come down. And then the second 6 months, I make sure that they have a group like that within arm's reach, where they're all on an equal playing field, where they're all learning how to check in, they're all caring well for one another. And then after that, they can launch that into their ministry, into their counseling, into the mission field, whatever that looks like. Because I'm tired of people burning out.
So from a professional standpoint, I've been a certified John Maxwell coach since 2011. 2012 is when I got certified officially. But that positional title, if you will, that certification, really was a verification of things that I'd learned and been practicing up to that point. But it was also a challenge to take that same observation skill, that same willingness to invest in others, that same desire to empower others to the next level.
Yeah.
And to lay behind it accountability.
Yes.
And so part of the way that I articulate that, my longest running podcast is over 1,800 episodes so far. It's been on the air for over 10 years. And that podcast is called Leading Leaders. The objective of it is to realize that there are those people who write 300-page leadership books.
Yep.
And they've led everybody in the world. but they can't seem to transfer the skill set.
Yes.
Or they forget, because they've been leading for so long, that transferring that skill set sometimes means doing things differently than you've always done them.
Yeah.
But in the same way that the cobbler, his kids have no shoes, the mechanic's car is always broken down,
Right.
the maid's house is always a mess.
Yep.
It seems like the PKs of the pastor are always the most indulgent.
Yeah.
And the mental health counselors and the psychologists and the psychiatrists and the ministry leaders that are supposed to be helping people keep their life straight are a train wreck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is that so?
I believe one of the hardest things that I see continually, and you'll see this all the time, people say, okay, I want you to take a couple minutes, I want you to form a small group, and I want you to do this task. Like, we were maybe taught in elementary school how to do that kind of sort of, but deep relational skills, who's taught us?
Yeah, nobody. They're either caught or you learn them in a book.
Exactly. And you
And
can't,
especially with the advent of the cell phone.
oh gosh, don't even get me started.
Because you can sear into that blue light and let it transform your brain literally into some kind of mushy thing.
Right?
But what it doesn't do is prepare you to have a relationship with another person.
Exactly. And trust, because think we've all been wounded in some way, and especially, just going to call out the pastoral care leaders that I've been dealing with, and I'll speak on behalf of them. They're always told that it's safe to share, but yet they're held, a lot of our pastoral care leaders are held at such a deep regard, and they're having so many deep conversations with other people. It's not safe. And so they realize that. And so to really have those deep relationships, that's what counts.
So I'm going to ask a really silly question. And if you're looking at me right now, then keep watching the camera, because this is going to be a very important turning point. If you're just listening right now, stop what you're doing and turn to the camera. And you're going to think I'm playing, but if you're just listening, you need to be serious about this, because this is going to be a very challenging question. But if you're watching, you'll understand why the question and the answer will mean 10 times more to you. So when you're dealing with ministers, how often do you find that the limitations God has allowed you to live with breaks down barriers that arrogance, that conceit, that pride usually put up when somebody feels like they're being challenged? Have those things been a benefit to you or a bigger hurdle?
Wow, that's really, I love that question. That's so good. I feel like the pastoral care leaders, counselors, just so many people that find their way to step out and thrive. It's the groups that I lead and facilitate. They're ready for it. They're hungry to go deeper. I've got the like, no, trust factor, already solidified. However, I have noticed a little bit of, especially getting a chance to like speak and start talking about it. And I don't know what that is, but especially with my experience, not this last one, but I have worked in churches before, and I've just noticed this pullback. Like, I just feel like a threat. I'm like, I'm just being myself, And so I've noticed that dynamic. Like, if I was on staff at a church, I don't know how I would be able to do the groups that I facilitate. But now that I'm taking it and just making it, something I feel like God's asking me to do, it's just made it a safe place for people to really connect. I'm honest and they're honest, and it's almost like you take a deep breath. It's like, okay, I can be real here. So you have some obviously visible limitations. And by that I mean, I can look in your eyes and realize they're not connecting with me the way that a normal person's eyes would connect with me. You have some speech patterns that indicate some challenges there. You have one arm that's not as long. And I'm not making a list of all your infirmities, so to speak. But I'm noting the things that I think an observant counselor would walk into the room and in most occasions, in the same way that you would if you're looking at another athlete, an athlete looking at an athlete, they look at ankles, they look at walk. Is he pigeon-toed, or are his feet turned out, or are they perfectly straight? Does he stride perfectly forward when he walks? Does he lean just a little bit forward? Does he walk like a sprinter, or does he walk like a long-distance runner? And they're sizing each other up from the time they walk into the room. A leader does the same thing. Is he wearing a college class ring? Is he wearing a military ring? Does he say something about himself with the lapel pins on his shirt, et cetera, et cetera? What are those things that I can surmise before the first word is said?
And we don't want to call them judgment. We don't want to call them prejudice. We want to call them observation or assessment, but we know they are all of the above.
Yeah.
So what's usually your first sign when you've walked into the room of a group of people that you're going to facilitate, that you know they're trained that way, you know they read body language and facial expressions and et cetera, and they know if you're making eye contact with them, and they know if you're listening deeply. How do you assess their assessment of you, and how do you react to that in the early phases?
Well, one of the very first things that we work on is checking in. I know sometimes in the rehab groups and the rehab world, they have their ways of doing it, but the way that I do it, and even that I do it with my kids, it's like, hey, what dominant emotion are you really checking in with right now? And then that's the key question. How would you like the group to best be with you? And that key question, I'm amazed how many people have no idea what they need. And they can't identify it.
Yeah.
And so it's really neat because I'm sitting, keep in mind, I'm sitting in groups with trained professionals, you know, and I'm like, okay, this is like a basic, you know, skill that we just haven't always evolved in. But here's what concerns me the most. If you have somebody that doesn't know what they need, and they're supposed to be with somebody else on the other side that they're supposed to be helping and guiding, right? But they can't identify their own needs. That's when some questions go off. So I am halfway assessing, but also watching, and then I train them to do that later. Like what you can ask for, what can the group ask for, what does it really look like to fix, right? To make myself feel better. Might not make you feel better, but I need to fix you in order for me to be okay in this situation.
And very quickly become codependent in that silliness, right?
Yep, exactly.
And unfortunately, it seems like there are two modalities of quote-unquote success, especially in Christian counseling or in mental health counseling. One of those looks like, I have secured a long-term client, they're going to need help for a while.
Yeah.
Or, I fixed you, you're ready to move on, please give me a testimonial and tell everybody how awesome I am.
Yeah.
Right? Or I'm going to elevate you to a point of service because I feel like we've cleared up whatever your problem was.
Yeah.
I remember when I went through training as a coach in the John Maxwell team. Christian Simpson was one of our trainers, not a believer, probably in his own confession would be more of an agnostic even than an atheist. But a deep spiritual guy and very aware of the coaching practice and principles. And he said, you know, everybody comes with their own presupposition. The teacher comes with the presupposition that I have information you don't have, I'm going to give it to you. The friend might come with, well, let me tell you what I did, and it'll work for you, without a whole lot of other things. The pastor comes with the, if you'll just get right with God, presupposition, right?
Yeah.
The therapist comes with the presupposition, you're broken and I'm going to fix you. The mentor comes with a presupposition, I've been down this road before, if you'll follow my footsteps, you'll avoid the pain. And the coach comes with the presupposition, the best answer you're looking for is already in you.
Yeah.
And you know it better than I do. My job is to ask questions until you find it. And each of those presuppositions are completely different. But if your reward, if your win, if your success is, I fixed you.
Yeah. It's not.
There's nothing good to come of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're not getting fixed and you're not getting the win and you know, we've gone into a big circle. And if your win is, I've now secured a long-term client, why can't you be more proficient at helping them find their solution in a timely manner, whether that's 3 months, 6 months, or a year? There should be some light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I say all that with one caveat, and that is I've been listening to Dr. Caroline Leaf for 15 plus years.
Yes.
And I love the way she says it takes 21 days to break a habit, 21 days to create a new habit, 63 days to see one habit replace another habit. And if you stop at the end of 63 days, you have a mess. And so she recommends her 21-day detox every 64 days. You start over. It may not be the same thing. And maybe you're dealing with a trauma and you're re-anchoring that to a new aromatherapy. And so you're replacing one thought with another, one activator, one trigger with another. But 63 days from now, you don't just give up and go, I'm fixed. You go back in there after something else and you're like, okay, so I've dealt with that trauma. I know how to trigger that in a different way. I know how to cope with that in a different way. Let's find something else. Maybe it's an addiction to sugar or caffeine or a bad relationship.
Yeah.
So tell me some of the things that you see. You said you work with people for about 6 months. Is this always a group facilitation, or is there also one-on-one work? And is the group usually from one group dynamic, i.e. one church, one denomination, one district, that type of thing? Or is it a hodgepodge of people from all kinds of different walks of life?
Yeah. Wow.
Sorry, I talked too much.
I love
It's an
it,
addiction.
though.
I'm trying to get over it.
This is great.
No, I'm
No, it's so good. Yeah, so the groups, I look for different things when I have interviews with people. And when we actually listen to Jesus together. Okay, well, what do we, after we get to know each other, after I explain what the group is, after they're able to identify some needs in their life, after they're able to see where they want to go. And so to some people, it does seem like a hodgepodge group because I don't know what God's doing. But I tell you, oh my goodness, by the time we get done, it never fails. Either by the second or the third time that we meet, people like, I know these people better than my own family.
Storytelling does that, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And we haven't even gotten to stories usually by this point. We're just checking in. We maybe tell a little bit of loose facts, about what got us here, but they're connecting with emotions, and they're connecting of just, okay, like, where do I want to go from here? And already they're connecting that deep. And so all that to answer, by the end of the 6 months, I want them to have such a deep knowing and experiencing of what it feels like to really have joy to be with other people no matter what.
So one of my declarations for my clients is that at the end of our time working together, whether it's 90 days or 6 months, I want you to have two things. Number one, 100 stories in your bank that you can work with.
Yes.
And number two, I want you to have the ability to get out of the car and trip over a Coke can and have a new story.
Yes. Sorry.
And so those
That's
two
exciting.
skill sets, having a plethora of stories and having the ability to identify the incident as a teachable moment and know what it's going to transfer and who the audience is and how it's going to work and how it's going to connect emotionally, those are absolutely invaluable tools.
Yes.
Now, some people, when they hire me, they think, well, you're just going to write a speech for me, so get busy writing my speech. They send me homework, and I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. And some are like, well, just help me write the speech that sells. And I'm like, you misunderstand what it is about a speech that sells, number one. Number two, what it is that you're selling. So who do you help and how is really where we need to start with that. One of the things that I teach, and I'd love your professional opinion on this, I teach people that word pictures are dangerous and the co-opted enthymeme is more important. And here's the way I state that. The word picture presumes that when I paint a scene for you, that you will feel about that scene the way I felt about that scene when I experienced it. The challenge, in my opinion, with that is, if you see a car accident on a street corner and you have 5 eyewitnesses, you get 10 different stories. Because everybody sees it at the moment differently than they see it in review. And everybody sees it differently at the moment based on A, where they're standing, and B, what they're feeling. Because their emotions actually drive their preview of the scene and their post view of the scene more than the facts. And so when I say, if I paint you a word picture of the accident scene, I presume that you feel about it what I felt about it. But we already know 5 people have 10 different feelings about the same scene. So how can I safely presume? On the other hand, like what you said a while ago, they connect with emotions before they move into the story even. I teach people to work with the co-opted enthymeme, meaning I'm going to bring you to a place where we're connecting emotionally, and I'm going to let you paint the picture in your own head so you can't argue with it.
There you go.
And so that you can emote with it.
That's powerful.
So how does that concept overlay with the way you facilitate a group in the first couple of weeks?
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, one of the very first things that we introduce, and you got a taste of it a little bit the other day, is interactive appreciation. And so they're not quite telling our story, but they're trying to look for, we call it God's fingerprints all over their everyday. Because honestly, we should be experiencing God every day. And if there's not, what are we looking at? Where's our focus? What's important about life? If we can't see what God's doing. And so one of my challenges to the group is like, okay, we can have an interactive appreciation moment and to allow God to bring it, not us to have to figure it out or think about it because we're stuck in our amygdala, fear, flight, that doesn't help. So let's actually have a connection with God and let's be able to receive and listen. and because you're going to have to learn how to do that with other people.
Right.
So being able to practice that and being able to watch them, okay, now that God was giving you that moment, don't push it away, but okay, what did you see in that moment? What did you hear in that moment? What did you smell in that moment? What did you taste? What did you feel and experience? And what's really neat is that to really anchor that in, that experience in, is they get to start sharing just that appreciation moment, just that little nugget of time with other people. And here's the really neat part is that, and we transition from this to really deeper group work, but until they get this solidified, it's almost like a safety net when you really start to do the deep story work. And so when they're doing all this, my other people in their circle are going around, wow, Jerry, when you shared that appreciation moment about seeing that rainbow, I just noticed in me just this jolt of excitement. Was it like that for you? Well, no, it wasn't like that for me. This is what I felt. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they're actually getting that interaction of going, huh, but it could still be the one and the same. See what I'm saying?
And it sounds a lot like what I teach, and that is, I felt X.
Yeah.
Well, who else has felt X?
Yes.
And so I solve that with what I call the avatar window. And that is to say, maybe you haven't experienced X, but if you've experienced Y, Z, or A, you probably have experienced the same set of emotions from a different perspective or in a different incident. And so the real hard question to ask as the presenter, as the teacher, as the coach, as the speaker on stage or on the podcast is, what other things have happened in my life or have I witnessed that felt like? I remember working with one client, and she was having a really hard time getting to her own stories. For the first 90 days, every story she told me, she was living vicariously through somebody else.
Oh, man.
I said, I want you to stop narrating other people's stories and retell your own. She broke down in tears. We didn't talk for almost 2 weeks. I thought she wasn't going to renew her contract. She called me back. She's like, okay, A, I'm renewing, and B, let's meet on this date because I need to tell you some stories. And when she started telling me stories, they were rich, they were deep, they were beautiful. But there was a common theme, as you can imagine, of a certain set of feelings that she went back to again and again. And it was a re-traumatized moment. But what we discovered was this feeling of, you're not good enough, I'm letting go of you, I can't trust you, was a recurring theme. And there were at least 4 times in her life that were completely different moments, but they all went back to the same thing. Can I really trust you, God? And so when we found the one that was the most visceral to retell, we set up that story, got people into the moment of that story where they were sensing in her voice and in her body gestures that exact moment of fear. And then she said, maybe you've never been in this place, but it feels just like this, and this. And each of those other moments are so common, you have to fall in one of, you've experienced one of those. A job loss, a broken relationship, rejection by your parents, whatever it was. You've experienced one of those. And it feels just like this. Now here's the antidote. Here's what's next. Here's what you got to do after this. But we found it in connecting with the emotions. Not through the details of the story, although the details of the story were what allowed other people to say, she feels this. Man, if I was right there, I mean, I've never been there, but I think if I was right there, I would feel that too. But that's very similar to your rainbow, in that you experience that even if you haven't seen the same thing.
Exactly. When even the deeper work of story work, because it sounds like we got to talk more.
Yes, powerful stuff.
But anyway, even in the story work time, we're sharing and keep in mind, these are all professionals. I have to remind myself because sometimes it's really easy to do a professional modality if you see somebody, and that's not okay. So we have to keep that in mind too. But sometimes these stories are deep, and they haven't had a chance to really work through their own stuff. And
no, because they have to live in the veneer of professionals. I have a coaching client who's been a Christian counselor, a pastor at a mega church for 10 years, a Christian counselor for 20 years, LPC supervisor.
Oh, wow.
And when we talk, this client's like, I am blown away at the way you draw things out of me through story that I can't get anywhere else. And I am trained to do this, and I can't do it to myself.
Right? Well, you can't.
And that's really what you're talking about, is allowing somebody to walk into the place where they take off the mask, lay down the veneer, and then get real with themselves. And I think another client that I have that deals with the quote-unquote disability of singleness. Let that phrase settle.
I know. I'm trying not to do that, but continue.
I've never said that to anybody else, but
okay.
watching you on the platform and watching them on the platform, knowing that I've worked with both of you, I look at it and go, if those two collaborated, they could be a lethal weapon against the enemy.
Yes.
Because one of the things that I observe about you is everybody has a compelling need to help you.
Oh yeah.
Which is, at some level, I step back and I go, you realize she gets up every day and goes to the bathroom.
Right?
So, I'm just guessing your boys don't
So
leave
good.
you. There's no somebody else in your house that does that.
Right?
You get up and go to work. I mean, you've told me stories about falling in the crosswalk in the middle of the street. Nobody's there to catch you or help you up. And you're laying there going, really? Nobody sees this? Nobody saw me fall in the middle of the street. Exactly. Nobody saw me with a white stick in my hand that might indicate I needed a little thank you very much. Keep honking. I'll get up in a minute. Right? And so the way that the world interacts with you, there are those that feel compelled. They can't help themselves but to help you.
Yes.
And they look at the limitations that are obvious and they go, well, obviously you need my help. I'm the hero today. And you're like, thank you. Yes, because you have a compelling need to help me, I will let you help me.
Yes.
I don't need your help, but I will let you help me because I know how much you need to help me.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and it's their comfortable, what makes them comfortable. Like I was joking with people just where we're at right now, and just be with amazing friends that have been on Zoom, I guess, so to speak, with me for the last year. So they've gotten to know, and they've gotten to hear my stories as well. So they know.
Yeah.
They know but it's so funny because I literally just had a conversation with the lady that I'm sharing the room with. She's like, my gosh, Bethany. She's like, I know you can do this, but I just can't sit with this tension. I have to be able to help you. You know, it's just that reality. Yeah. But she's like, oh, and I just told her, well, do you want to go deeper with that? Because that's fine. Like, let's talk more. But it is. It's one of those really. It's a healthy tension to have, right? Because you have to realize what you need, but then you also have to realize what the other person needs, and we're all that, and the safe place to talk about it.
I study a lot of human personality and skills and stuff like that as a communicator. But I've been watching a couple of CIA's guys lately that do body language reading, facial expressions, microaggressions, microexpressions, and just the way you move an eyebrow, or are you telling a lie? Did your body position change? What are those things? And we forget, 93% of what you say isn't in words.
Yep.
It's in everything else that you tell.
Yes. As
you're advancing your senses. I mean, you talk about the beeping ball. That cracks me up, by the way. But just the phrase, the beeping ball, not the bleeping ball, the beeping ball.
Yeah.
Right. But that little play on words and the frustration with that. Mm-hmm. Yet the whole indication of that story is my sight was limited, but my vision is what really drove everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the anchor behind the story.
Yep.
As your sight is leaving, how has God enhanced your perception ability in everything else? Because for most people, when they lose their eyesight, their hearing is better. When they lose their eyesight, their sense of smell is better. When they lose their eyesight, the sense of touch is better. But you seem to be fighting the combat of all of them are kind of leaving in a group.
Yeah, because I've always struggled with vision and hearing. I guess I'll go ahead and address that. I have charge syndrome.
Say it again. It's called what?
Charge syndrome. Okay. So it's spelled CHARGE, and each letter stands for something else. And you guys can Google that. I will say, it's not one of those that you can go, oh, they must have charge. Like, it's such a wide spectrum. You've got, some adults that will never live independently. You've got some kids that may not live to see the next year. I mean, you just get to have so many wide variety of different challenges. And so with that being said, with everything that, I forgot the question. How
has God enhanced your senses in one place where others have been diminished?
There you go. Okay, so I've been losing a lot of my vision and hearing together, which has really been interesting. And one thing I've had to realize, and I hated it because they told me early on, some doctors that have just been, to me, they've been as most frustrated as I have been, which has been comforting but also annoying. And so one thing they told me, they're like, Bethany, you really have to pay attention to your energy level. you are going to tank and you are going to go down at such a deep threshold that you're not going to be able to do anything because of everything that's going on. So you need to know when you've reached that bottom point for your own safety to get to a resting point. You're going to have to rest.
What is your baseline?
What is when I know when I'm at that point? Normally, because I kind of experienced that yesterday, normally is when I could just, it's my eyes get so heavy, like I literally cannot focus at all, and my ears are just like I can hear noise, but it doesn't make any sense.
It's just noise.
Yes. And it's just like I'm shutting down. And so if I don't get to some kind of place, even if it's for like a couple minutes, it's not good.
I'm diabetic, and the first time my blood sugar crashed, I was driving in traffic.
Oh, gosh.
And I'd never experienced it before, so I had no idea what it was.
Oh, gosh.
I can tell you to this day, I remember looking at the gear shift in my Jeep going, what's next? And I had to cognitively think through the process.
Yeah.
I've been driving way too long, but I'm driving a stick for way too long in Dallas traffic for way too long.
Yeah.
And to have to look at the gear shift and go, what comes after 2?
Yeah. Oh, man.
The worst part was, I was on my way to a job interview.
No.
And so I sat in the job interview, and he would ask me a question, and if I didn't doze off, I answered with something that sounded like I was from outer space.
Did they realize anything was going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fortunately, I had interviewed with this guy before and been hired by him before. And so he's like, look, there's nobody else that can do this job. You're the person that I've selected for this job. This interview is an official part of the process. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to mark down completed. Go see your doctor because there's something wrong with you today.
Yes.
I'm like, thank you. I realize that. And he's like, I don't know what's wrong with you, but as long as I've known you, you've never been like this.
Yeah.
But when that limitation hit, it was like,
yes.
Now I've experienced it, and I'm like, oh, my sugar's crashing. My hands are shaking. My heart's palpitating. I can't see straight.
Yeah.
I need to sit down. And if I sit down too long, I fall over on the floor and I want to take a nap and not get up.
Yep.
A donut or an orange juice usually will fix that, but usually for me, it's like binge on the buffet because I am starving and I'm crashing, and it's an excuse to eat more than I should.
There you get that, yeah. And that's one thing that people have compared it to, but with me, it's like, it's hard to explain. I've had some days where I reach that moment and I barely make it into my living room and I don't leave the couch for the entire night. But I've also had some moments like yesterday, which I was kind of scared. I've been keeping it real. I love all of our people, but I could lay down, but with about 10 or 15 minutes, I was like, okay, and we're good. It's just like, okay, false alarm, we're good. And you just don't know how long it's going to last for.
Is that a neurological challenge? Is that an energy deficiency like a magnesium would help, or electrolytes would help?
I'm on so many different supplements, it's not even funny. There's alphabet letters that I've never known go together. So, but with all of that, I believe it's just a combination of overuse with my eyes and my ears. And when it both happened at the same time and they both get to that critical point, it's
just overstimulated in every way.
Way overstimulated. And I don't always know. Like, I can be in the middle of the airport and feel fine, and then it just, like, oh yeah, so I have my noise canceling headphones, which people are like, what?
Yeah, you're deaf. Why do you have noise canceling earphones?
Yes, exactly. They don't get it. But it's like your ear still receives sound, even if you can't hear.
Yeah, the bones are still vibrating even if the signal doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people forget about that. And it's like, well, there's still work going on. And so that's what I'm learning. That has been the hardest part, and that's part of what my message is about with the whole beat ball incident, is that my coach was trying to teach me not to use my eyes, because I didn't need to use my eyes. I had to get used to that. Okay, like I have such keen spatial awareness. So I don't have to even keep my eyes open. I can kind of, automatically kind of see where things are. But at that time, I didn't trust myself enough to do that. And so that was the first time that I realized, okay. And he was right. He's like, Bethany, God's already given you that gift. You just need to use it.
Okay, so 5 people in a room. You're facilitating this deep emotional dive. You can't see them.
Yeah.
You can't read their body language or their microaggressions or their eye rolls. Can you hear their eye rolls? I know teenagers, you can sometimes hear their eyes roll. They sound like...
I like that. That's so true. Anyway.
So you're missing all of those cues that you would normally use as a counselor, therapist, or facilitator. So what do you use to read the room instead?
Well, 2 answers to that. First of all, I use Zoom, meaning I do a lot of mine online, which a lot of people are like, you can't do, transformational groups online. Yes, you can. You just got to experience it. And my setup allows me to magnify it's I can see boogers if I wanted to. So I can really go
Let me just
deep.
tell you, if you're not paying attention, I can see them anyway.
Yes, exactly. There's things that I've noticed, and I'm like, I'm so sad. I'm just like, but anyway, so they're aware that I can. They don't see what's going on my side, so I can see that on Zoom. Now, there's still things I miss,
Right.
but and they're aware with that, which is amazing because I've learned more about myself in these groups. That these people were willing to track that journey with me, and like I've learned about what colors. Like, 'cause I'm also colorblind. And so I've learned what colors show up better for my eyes on Zoom than others. And I didn't know any of that.
So if we see you on stage and you're wearing something absolutely toddler-like, oh, look, she's got on green pants and a red shirt and a yellow jacket?
Right? Yeah.
Wait,
How'd
that's
that
a
go?
bathrobe.
Yeah.
Then we'll know.
They don't know why. Yes.
She
Chat
can't
GPT
see what she
friend.
put on. I don't know who dressed her today. It wasn't her.
Exactly. Chat GPT dresses me pretty much every day. Just keeping it real.
Very nice.
So yeah. So all that to say, Zoom helps me now if I'm in person with people, and I'm still learning, because that's one thing. And I was telling people this the other day. I love taking trips. I'm from Florida and I'm in Texas right now, and people are like, "What? Like, how do you?" And I travel alone. Which people are like, that blows their mind, but it's fun. But all this to say, each trip that I take out of my little comfort zone, I start to realize it's met with excitement, but also grief. Because I'm realizing, oh shoot, like this really is deeper than I realized, and I've lost more than I wanted to realize. And so I've tried to prepare myself each trip that I go on for that. But all this to say, when I'm in a group, they're all with me and they're all aware that things are changing, and so we're usually trying new things. But a lot of times it's like when you're able to articulate what's happening in your body, that's huge. Or, wow, Joey, I just saw you go like this when you responded to this. Can you tell me a little bit more about what this means to you? So they're labeling what's happening as well.
Right.
And so it's just a totally deep way of being aware. It's just like a speaker, for instance, when you've worked with, not me on this yet. I have to be curious if I do it. Hopefully I don't. But, there's unknowing movements that you're doing while you're speaking, right? You don't notice it until somebody calls it out. Once they call it out and bring it to your attention, you're bringing that to your awareness of like, okay, wait, I'm doing it. So the same thing of, when you're noticing things about the group, everybody's allowed to say something like, out of curiosity, hey, I noticed that you're twiddling with your hair when you heard that part.
Right.
Can you tell me more about that? And they don't know what's going on. But anyway.
Yeah, subconscious cues.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I love studying the CIA guys and the FBI guys and the way that they analyze people, hostage negotiations and stuff like that, because there's a different reason for looking for those things.
Yes.
And, on the spiritual sense, when you walk into a room and you're prayed up and you're hearing the Holy Spirit, you get that word of knowledge or that word of wisdom. Yeah. And when that comes, you're like, they wouldn't have told me that in a million years. When my wife and I used to do pre-marriage counseling, I would tell people in the first session, 2 things you need to know. This woman doesn't talk much. And if she goes to the point of talking, you're going to see her hand shaking. She may be death gripping my arm as she's talking. Wow. She may have red streaks down her neck. She may be sweating. She may have tears in her eyes. And if she's gone to that trouble to say something to you and you miss it, you're a fool.
Yep.
That's point number 1. Point number 2, one of my strongest gifts is the prophetic. And the operation of that in my life is reading people and hearing God say things about them that they would have never told me. Yeah. So there's a chance that something you've written in the manual is untrue and God will reveal it. There's a chance that you didn't even answer the question, or that all of the questions were answered and they were accurate, but there's something the book didn't ask you, and I'm going to. And so you just need to know that up front. If we can go into the next 6 weeks knowing that, it will change our relationship.
That's huge.
And the number of times that God would reveal something and people are like, how did you know that? I'm like, I told you before we started.
Yeah, we've already covered this.
And so it's setting those ground rules and those expectations. So I'm really curious, is that something that you operate in as your sight is diminishing, as your hearing is diminishing, to move into that place of say, I know you don't know that I see you the way that I see you. Yes. And by that I mean, if I closed my eyes, I would still see the same you.
Yep.
I worked with a client for a while who was a master instructor of NLP. what she was looking for specifically, and this is a client who fired me twice and kept hiring me back. But what she was looking for specifically was the way to articulate the fourth level of communication, the pure energy.
Yeah.
And she said, I've done equine instruction and equine therapy. And she said the number of people who walk into the ring with a horse and they have trauma in their life,
Oh, yeah.
the energy that exudes from them terrifies the horse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without a word, without a body gesture, they can
Right.
walk in the middle of the arena and the horse will run from them for no reason.
Yeah.
And it's all energy.
Yeah.
We recently took a lady out for a photo shoot for her engagement pictures. Maternity pictures. They wanted to go to a ranch. We went out to a ranch. A friend of mine owns several acres and some horses. And we got out there, and I'm thinking, she's very pregnant.
Yeah.
Horses are big. It only takes one accident,
Right.
right? One kick.
Yeah.
It's traumatic.
Yeah.
Life-changing.
Yeah.
And she walked right up to the biggest horse out there.
Oh, man.
And I have the photo of that horse nuzzling the baby belly. And she was just petting its ears. And when we walked from that area to the next area for filming, the horses followed her.
Wow.
And the ranch owner said, that horse doesn't like anybody.
Wow.
It was energy. It was the mom energy. It
Yep.
was the fact that she grew up around horses and livestock all of her life. And the horse felt comfortable with her.
Okay. It's huge.
So that kind of energy, do you read a lot of that as well in what you're doing? And I don't mean like Reiki energy. I mean like
No, yeah.
the actual energy of the spirit in a person.
Yeah, it's really neat. We practice listening to Jesus together around things. That's one of the things they can ask for. So we're talking about needs,
Interesting.
and so it's really, I love it because I've been amazed of how many pastors specifically. No, I'm not a pastor. I'm just saying, but they're like, oh, I've never listened to Jesus with other people. Okay, well, let's try it here. Let's do an experiment, And so usually somebody's checking in with something and they're just listening to Jesus around it. And I've learned, at least over the last year or so, God has changed and shifted some things to me to give me pictures. And I was really hesitant the first time because it made no sense to me. And I'm like, and you kind of feel like some responsibility, right?
Absolutely.
Sure.
A high level of responsibility. Those who are called to teach, don't
Yes.
take it lightly.
Yes. And so I really prayed about it, and I just really felt, this one group that I had was very overachieving. And I was like, okay, these I'm going to try it. So I, prepped them up, and it found out that the vision that I was seeing was actually part of this gentleman's story that he had not shared.
Wow.
And it was like almost one of those, as we call it, skeleton in a closet moments.
Wow.
And he's like, how? And it changed everything for him because he finally got to open that up for us. And he's never done that for anybody before. And it saved probably his marriage, honestly, at this point. And so I was like, when that happened, I was like, okay, all right, I'm not going to excuse myself anymore. I'm just going to share what's going on. And that gave other people
Permission.
the freedom, permission to do it.
Yeah.
And also one other thing that we do is as we wrap up each group session that we have, whatever it is, we go, okay, what is God giving you? So again, you're not having them come up with it. What is God giving you just as one takeaway from our time together today? And so some of them will get pictures, some will get songs, some of them will get, it's just amazing. And somebody pointed this out to me a couple weeks ago, and I went back and watched some of the recordings, but she's like, Bethany, because I'm always the last one to go, you always come up with a picture, and it almost is like it summarizes everybody's. You don't have time to just come up with that. Like,
Right.
That has to be God, the way it did. And she's right. And so I'm just like, okay, God, like you're doing that, and they're seeing that, and they're actually pointing it out to me. So we're all kind of on that journey together.
I've always held the theory, and I've taught it for years, that if you're sitting at the radio, sitting at the intersection and listening to a song on the radio, and you roll down the windows, and the car next to you is tuned to the same radio
Yes.
station, they hear the same song.
Yes.
And they may have tuned in at a different segment of the song, or only listen to it, or they may have a different favorite part. They love the
Yep.
bridge, not the chorus.
Yeah.
And yet, when you're tuned into the same frequency,
Yes.
you hear the same thing.
Yes.
I've always held that theory that when you're tuned into Jesus,
Yes.
you're going to hear the same thing.
Yes.
And that's why when you see a prophetic move or a revival move or something of that nature, even a call to repentance or a call to purity or righteousness, when you see that in one place and then you see it in other places, that's not just a local move or an individual transformation. That's a God move.
Yes. Yes. And it's powerful.
Absolutely.
Right? I think we underestimate the safety and deep connections that we can have when we trust others. And it is trust.
Yeah.
Just admit it's trust when we're saying, let's listen to Jesus together around this.
Well, it's trusting God that he won't reveal something to them about you that violates you because he loves you.
Yes.
And trusting them that they will have honor and respect for God's word to them and your life, that they won't reveal or exaggerate or expose something that's inappropriate as well.
Yes. Well, and it's like I tell my people, it's like, because some of them are so new to doing this, and they're just like, can I do that? Like, can God actually speak outside of the Bible? Like, we get to all that. And I'm like, how about this?
Will you really talk to me?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, well, how about this? We'll listen, and just because somebody says something with you, you shouldn't just take it at face value anyway. You should be taking it to Jesus, but also try it on, see if it fits. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to do your own thing. So one thing that we practice is, okay, this is what I'm sensing. This is what I'm getting from it. But you don't say, thus saith the Lord to that other person, because we're just practicing. That's one rule in my group, because that's like a protection thing. Yeah. And it's like, okay. And it's been amazing.
And that's a huge sign of religious abuse.
Oh, gosh, no kidding. Yeah. And people don't even know. I don't call it that because that would bring up a whole nother.
Especially with professionals in the business. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I'm like, no, but it's amazing because this is the first time people have been able to really, as they call it, practice that, because they've never had the safety to do so. And I'm like, wow, that's sad.
Yeah. And it is so easy to be distrusting.
Yes.
When you feel like everybody's trying to get one over on you. When you feel like if I let the guard down, if I expose the veneer, if I take off the mask, they're going to see the ugly in me. Yeah. And they won't love me anymore. Yeah. Or they'll see the ugly in me and I'll lose my position. Or they'll see the ugly in me. And here's for the hardest part for me is I've been asked to leave 7 different churches in my life. Oh. One of them I straight up said, you quote too much scripture.
Wow.
Other bizarre reasons that when you hear them from my point of view, you're like, what?
Yeah.
I'm sure they had their own point of view, and it's not the same as mine, and I get that. But I still look at them and go, huh? Why? What do you mean? Whatever. Yeah. But here's the other thing that I know is that Christians are the worst about crucifying their wounded. Yep. Rather than restoring.
Yes.
I still deeply wrestle with the question, if God qualifies the called, who is it with the authority to disqualify?
Right. Yeah.
And yet, on a regular basis, you hear that language in the church and outside the church. People are going to like, well, he did so and so, he must be disqualified. Well, she said such and such, she must be disqualified now. And you're like, really, what you're saying is, I don't want to submit to the authority. Yeah. And yet, our fear is that we lose that position.
Yes.
And because of the pastoral role, or the job, or the title, or the podcast, or the book, or whatever it is, we forget the truth that lays behind the statement. If your eye causes you to sin, pluck out your eye. You'd be better to enter into heaven without your eye than to live happily in the world in sin. And because we'd rather hold on to the title, position, the paycheck, we sacrifice the power of the righteousness and that right standing with God to say, if I lose it all, but I'm okay with you, I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Bethany, it has been a joy talking to you. Time has actually escaped us. Guess how long we've been talking?
I have no idea.
We've been pushing an hour.
No way. It doesn't even feel like that.
Yeah.
No, I'm sad it's over.
We'll have to do it again.
Yes, this is fun.
Next time you're in Texas, you can come to my studio. I love Grace Point having us here and love being here for Accelerator and Master the Stage, but I think there's a lot more to be said.
Oh,
and I very much appreciate you taking the time.
I feel like we scratched the surface.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a highly viewed and highly shared conversation, though. And so I'm guessing people are going to want to reach out and get in touch with you and figure out how they can get in your group. So why don't you tell them how they can do that?
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you for giving me that opportunity. My website is very hard. It's my name, BethanyBoring.com, which I know we're looking at possibly changing that. But they can reach out to me anytime. I'm also on Facebook and all the good places. But I also have a podcast. And I would encourage people to always start there. It's so neat to be able to have these places, right, where we can just be ourselves.
Yeah.
And so my podcast is Radical Care for Christian Counselors, and it's a great place to start. And my book, The Joy Catcher, just came out too. So that's a children's book, so everybody should be able to read it.
There you go. Is the bleeping ball story in there?
No, that's giving my next book. No, I don't know. But no, it's actually a completely different one between my relationship with me and my grandpa.
Very good. Excellent. Bethany, thank you for being here. I
Thank
very
you.
much appreciate you. Listen, if you're still watching Storypower TV, you need to share this. You need to get it out there. You need to let the world know. And we're going to encourage her to bring her podcast to OBBM Network as well, because I think that's a world of people that need to hear it and see it. So if you're watching, share, like, subscribe, let people know about it, and encourage people to come back and watch this. There are a lot of people who are hurting right now who feel like, I'm the one qualified to help everybody else. Why am I still broken?
Yeah.
And they need help.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell you every time. If you're a regular watcher, you know this. If you're not sure if God loves you, ask Him.
Yeah.
You may be amazed at the answer that you get. You might be amazed that you just get an answer. But if you ask Him, He will answer you. That's a promise. And it's not my promise, it's His.
Yeah.
So ask Him, and you'll know. I'm Loren Norris for Storypower TV. Until it like it is. Have a blessed day. I encourage you to go to storypoweracademy.com and check it out. Look at the different classes, the different levels, the different things that are available. You can take a lot of them a la carte. But spend some time there and see if that's the kind of thing that would change the way you communicate as a leader, as a pastor, as a counselor, as a political leader. And if that will help you, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Again, only 10 people in the elite speakers. You will have to apply for that. But if you're a candidate, I'd love to have that conversation with you. I'm Loren Norris with Storypower Academy. I look forward to seeing you inside.
Hi, my name is Christina Knowles, and I just got done taking Jay Loren's Storypower Masterclass. It was amazing. I took away so much information. One of the things that I really enjoyed being formally trained in media many, many years ago is the call to action. I will use that with every speaking engagement, and I'm so grateful that Loren just spoke truth into his teachings, and he is a true professional. And I know this might sound weird, but I've been taking certifications in different classes over the years, and Loren is not boring. I can't even believe I got here at 9, and then the class went by so fast that I was like, it's time to go already? And I was shocked that it was time to go already. So it's an awesome class. You're going to enjoy it, I promise.